My name means, keeper of tradition. That's what my first name means. And for me, that just doesn't mean, family tradition, but that means I feel like I'm a part of a greater tradition, in terms of, an artistic tradition, a social tradition. So when I think of myself as an artist, as an educator, as a thinker, I think of the best of our culture. I think of Paul Robeson, who said the role of art isn't simply to show the world as it is, but as it could and should be. The patch here on my jacket and the logo for Asante Filmworks is this historic picture of Malcolm X, right, at the window with the gun. But now he doesn't have the gun. Now he's got the camera. And usually below that poster, you see the words, by any means necessary. That's how I approach, I guess art is by any means necessary, or by any medium necessary. If I can tell the story through film and engage the people that way, then that's what I'm going to do, because film to me is the most powerful medium.
Young women, young men of color, come up from the gloom of national neglect you have already been paid for. Come out of the shadow of irrational prejudices. You owe no racial debt to history. The blood of our bodies and the prayers of our souls have bought for you a future without shame, bright beyond the telling of it.
The Black Candle is the first feature film about Kwanzaa. It looks at Kwanzaa's history, started in 1966, and kind of gives you the history of Kwanzaa all the way up until present day, and also the global nature of Kwanzaa. So, we film in Paris and in Jamaica, and people see Kwanzaa celebrations all over the world, because this is a holiday that's celebrated by millions of people all over the world. So we show that diversity. We go to the continent of Africa and show that. The film also puts Kwanzaa in a context, in a historical context. This thing didn't just come out of nowhere. This thing is rooted in a deep tradition of African-American struggle and African-American victory. So the film, puts it in that context, and the film uses Kwanzaa as a vehicle to celebrate the best of what it means to be African in the world. I believe that if you make an observation, you have an obligation. That's kind of the motto that drives everything in my life: art, social activism. If you make an observation, you have an obligation. So what I've tried to do as an artist is to try to put things in place that I don't see there, in society. So, with the first film I did, 500 Years Later, we asked ourselves, how come there's no film that explores the psychocultural effects of slavery and colonialism on the African diaspora, does it in an empowering way, is told by African people themselves, and is Pan-African? How come there's no film like this, And the answer was that we hadn't made that film yet. So we made it, to try to put that in place, with this latest film, The Black Candle. It's, how come there's no film that uses Kwanzaa as a vehicle to celebrate our experience, How come there's no film like that? And again, we had to make that film.
These are principles of what we're supposed to be doing 365, you know what I mean, and how we treat each other and how we look at the world.
We did not petition or ask for permission to celebrate. We did it by Kujichagulia, self-determination. We determined that this was good for us. We determined that we were going to celebrate it.
My goal has always been to try to put things that I would like to see in society there that are not currently there. You're now entering the Asante, one of the many Asante libraries. You can just, the section, these are all mainly Asante books or friends of Asante. So, we've got a lot of books by my father here, some of my books, books by Miri Baraka and Dr. Karenga and Hakeem Adabuti and, just lots of people here, Elizabeth Catlett. This is kind of a non-fiction section dealing with colonialism and history of Africa and African-American history, and this is where my father, I guess, this is where he usually works. You can always look at somebody's desk and kind of see like what they're dealing with at the moment. These are the books that I'm actually taking today. And I'm writing fiction. I got a novel that I've got a contract for, so I'm working on a novel and also a fiction a movie, fiction movie that we're working on. So these things are just kind of to help me get in that mode. I teach at a HBCU, so the majority of students are black, and majority of students come from Baltimore, Philadelphia, DC. And I guess one of the challenges for all of us is to think about ourselves collectively. I quote Paul Robeson because Paul Robeson is just someone who I love so dearly. And Robeson, he was in front of the HUAC committee in 1956, and they were grilling him, and they said, "Oh, Robeson, don't you sit here and talk to us about racism. We saw you play football at Rutgers, and you went to Columbia University in law." And he said, "No. He said, "I challenge this very, very deeply, what you're saying." He says, and I think about this in the context of Obama, what Robeson said, and that he said, "Don't look at me and judge where my people are based on me." And I think, when we think about the chain, all the proverbs say, the chain is judged by the weakest link. So it's important always to remember, not when we look at Obama, that's an excellent example of what can be achieved, and human will and human intelligence and brilliance and black genius. I mean, it's an example of all that, but it's important, it's almost impossible to forget, living in a place like Baltimore or Philadelphia, what the average person is going through in your community. My mission, is to always, remain humble and remain a student, of the world, because I think the world and life just has so much to teach us. So, right now I'm doing a lot of listening, doing a lot of listening to my environment, to the world, to people around me, and just trying to take it all in, and figure out what's the best way I can make a contribution, Obviously, I'm drawn and have gravitated toward the arts, and toward using, my culture as a way to uplift and enlighten. So I will definitely remain in that tradition. But for me right now, it's really just about, listening to the world, and trying to make the best contribution that I can. This film is the first film about Kwanzaa, but more importantly, as Maya Angelou says about this film, it's more than a film about a holiday. It's a film that's a celebration of a people, and this is a film that really should be watched 365 all year round. Get the young people in your community together, watch it. Get the elders in your community together, watch it. The women, the men, the young people, just everybody. This is a film that really needs to be shown, because we don't see ourselves in this light very often. So I think it's really important to just show it, educate, and keep it moving. My name is M.K Asante Jr., and you are watching Real Black.